Welcome back to Square Off. Governor Doug Ducey and the Republican-controlled legislature capped this year's session in June by passing the country's most expansive school choice program. All 1.1 million Arizona students will be eligible for $7,000 vouchers every year to attend private or parochial schools, the money coming from your tax dollars. But how soon will those checks be going out the door? Joining us, one of the people who could stand in the way. Beth Lewis is a public school teacher and executive director of Save Our Schools Arizona, an advocacy group for K-12 education. Welcome back to Square Off.
Hi, thanks, Bram.
Good to see you. 4 years ago, we talked about this on Square Off. You were part of an SOS Arizona initiative to roll back another universal voucher expansion. The rollback succeeded by a 2-to-1 margin.
Correct.
In 2018 in a statewide initiative. Now you're organizing again. Before we get into that, I do want to ask you, why do you think parents should not control where their tax dollars go for their child's education?
Absolutely. So this universal voucher expansion that was passed by Governor Ducey in the legislature represents a complete destruction, an irreversible destruction of our public education system. And, we need to think about the million children that are left behind when this voucher money leaves our schools. If this bill passes, we're talking about $1 billion per year leaving our public education system every single year in Arizona. We know schools will be closed, teachers will be laid off, and public education as we know it will not remain in our state.
Let's talk about that initiative back in 2018. Did a lot in a very short time getting signatures. What was the biggest lesson, your biggest takeaway from that initiative?
I think just inspiration. I mean, the fact that thousands of public education advocates, teachers, community members came together to band together to fight for public education in our state was absolutely inspirational. And I think we learned how much Arizona voters support public education. It was overwhelming, a 2-to-1 vote. And we've seen polling since that shows that Arizona voters overwhelmingly support public schools.
So tell us about the nuts and bolts, because I've received a lot of questions about this. What do you have to do to put this universal expansion on the ballot?
Save Our Schools Arizona has launched a referendum drive, a petition drive, to collect 118,000 valid signatures before September 24th this year. And that will effectively put the bill on ice until November 2024, at which point Arizona voters get an opportunity to weigh in again and to once and for all eliminate this universal voucher expansion.
So if you get enough signatures before September 24th, which is the date this law is supposed to take effect, the law would be put on hold for 2 years?
Correct.
And there are likely to be legal fights. Because this time, as Bob Robb, conservative columnist Bob Robb has pointed out, the choice side, they're ready for a fight. Last time they weren't. They barely put up a fight. They're ready, they'll have money. What if there is a legal fight that just, keeps the signatures tied up in court, which we've seen before?
Yeah, we're absolutely ready for any legal fight. Our signatures were an 87% validity rate last year because, teachers and parents are collecting signatures and because they care. We know that special interests like Betsy DeVos and others will come into the state and spend oodles of money, a scorched earth policy of lawsuits and litigation. But at the end of the day, we know that we're in the right to refer this. We know that citizens in Arizona have this ability to refer this law. And the reason that they're willing to spend so much money is because they want to destroy our public education system, and we're not going to have it.
Do you have money on your side? Have you lined up commitments for funding to handle any legal expenses and then, if it comes to it, ultimately a campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. We're ready. And
who would your backers be?
Just supportive people who support public education all across the country have been calling me, emailing me, phone is ringing off the hook. People are fired up about this horrific expansion because we see governors from red states, lawmakers, special interests all over the country saying that this needs to happen in every state in the country. So I think we feel, that we have a responsibility to hold back the privatization of public education, which is happening right here in Arizona, to protect the schools all across the country.
There is an interesting part of this law that it provides for a scrutiny of how families use the money. That's been in place for these empowerment scholarship accounts. That's how vouchers are formally known in Arizona. So there's accountability for how the parents use money, but there doesn't appear to be any accountability for these private or parochial schools for performance measures, assessments, that kind of thing.
Right, absolutely. And lawmakers had the opportunity to put in place, some form of accountability for taxpayer dollars, and they refused to do so. They also stripped academic accountability from the bill at the 11th hour intentionally. And so what we're left with is, no transparency, no accountability for taxpayer dollars. There's nothing in the bill that would prevent, a bad actor, for-profit motivated folks from opening up a series of schools all across the state that teach, all sorts of extremist ideology. We saw Charlie Kirk is opening up Turning Point USA schools. He was just in Newsweek last month saying that he was going to expand those all across the state and then across the country.
Beth Lewis of Save Our Schools Arizona, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bram.